Welcome to the History Desk channel. Today I will tell you about Cleopatra, the most ruthless queen in history. Stay tuned. Cleopatra was born on November 2, 69 BC. The true birthplace is still a mystery, but it is generally believed that her birthplace was the cultural center of the ancient world, Alexandria. Contrary to common misconception, the queen did not have a drop of Egyptian blood and came from the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was founded by Alexander the Great's Diado, Ptolemy I, and therefore had Greek roots. Practically nothing is known about Cleopatra's childhood and youth. But it is worth assuming that the future ruler avidly read books in the Library of Alexandria and studied music, as she was able to think philosophically, reasoned, played various instruments and knew 8 foreign languages. This is surprising because in those days the Greeks did not care about the education of children, especially girls. For example, her sister Berenice was quite the opposite. She loved entertainment, was rather lazy, and was unintelligent. In 58-55 BC, Cleopatra had to watch as her father Ptolemy XII Avlatus was banished from the country and power was concentrated in the hands of his daughter, Berenice. The ancient Greek historian Strabo noted that Berenice was the only legitimate daughter of Ptolemy XII Avlatus, so there is an opinion that Cleopatra was born of a concubine. Later, by the forces of the Romans, under the leadership of Aulus Gellius, these events left an imprint in Cleopatra's mind. Later, she remembered the reckless rule of her father, who remained in her memory as a man whose mistakes should be learned. Fr. After Ptolemy XII Avlatus returned what was rightfully his, the heiress Berenice was beheaded. After the king's death, according to tradition, which called for the preservation of the divine blood of royal families, the 18-year-old Cleopatra married her 10-year-old brother Ptolemy XIII and became ruler of Egypt. It is true, formally, as she could have full power only in cycles. In ancient times, girls were destined to a secondary role. She ascended the throne as Cleopatra, which meant God, loving her father. It is worth saying that Egypt was coveted by the Romans, despite the fact that in this country 96% of the territory is occupied by deserts. But the valleys, the treasures of the Nile civilization, are famous for their exceptional fertility. Therefore, during the reign of Cleopatra, one of the most powerful empires, the Roman, claimed the territory of Egypt. Some external regions of Ta Kemet belonged to the Romans, but the country itself was not completely conquered. Therefore, Egypt, also because of financial debts, became a dependent state. The first years of her reign were difficult for Cleopatra, because the country was short of food. The insufficient Nile flooding provoked a 2-year crop failure. In addition, the battle for the throne, sibling feuds. Initially the queen dismissed her husband and ruled the country alone, but, therefore, during the reign of Cleopatra, one of the most powerful empires, the Roman, claimed the territory of Egypt. Some external regions of Ta Kemet belonged to the Romans, but the country itself was not completely conquered. Therefore, Egypt, also because of financial debts, became a dependent state. The first years of her reign were difficult for Cleopatra, because the country was short of food. The insufficient Nile flooding provoked a 2-year crop failure. In addition, the battle for the throne, sibling feuds. Initially the queen dismissed her husband and ruled the country alone, but, becoming older, Ptolemy XIII did not put up with the arbitrariness of his relative and, relying on his tutor Potin, who was also the regent and de facto ruler, organized a revolt against Cleopatra. It was announced to the people that the girl had ceased to obey the ruling trio of Potin, Theodates and Achilles, and wanted to overthrow her younger brother. The queen fled to Syria and thus remained alive. Staying as an uninvited guest in the Middle East, the girl dreamed of regaining full power. At about the same time, the dictator and Roman general Gaius Julius Caesar went to Alexandria to catch up with his sworn enemy Pompey, defeated in the civil war, the Battle of Pharsalia. now fled to Egypt. However, Julius was not able to get even with his enemy personally, because when the emperor arrived in the Nile Valley, Pompey had already been killed. Caesar had to be delayed in Alexandria because of unfavorable weather conditions for the long journey, so the ruler of Rome did not miss the opportunity to collect the accumulated debt 12 avlatus from his successor, 10 million denarii. Thus Julius participated in the conflict between Ptolemy's associates and Cleopatra, hoping to benefit both himself and the Romans. But it is worth noting that the general came to Egypt with a small army, 3,200 soldiers and 800 horsemen. Ptolemy XIII took advantage of this circumstance. Society supported the ruler, so Julius had to hide in the king's quarter, putting his life in danger. In the winter, Julius Caesar again invaded Egypt and defeated the army of supporters of Ptolemy XIII, who drowned in the Nile. Cleopatra again ascended the throne and ruled with the minor Ptolemy XIV. Philip's daughter matured, and people began to discuss one oddity Lazarev et al. Legends are still being told about Cleopatra's personal life. Thanks to the cinema, this ambitious girl has been seen played by Elizabeth Taylor, Cleopatra, 1963, Monica Bellucci Asterix and Obelix, Mission Cleopatra, 2002, and other movie actresses who played the ruler. That is why many people think that Cleopatra was a femme fatale beauty who seduced men with her mere glance. But contrary to popular belief, the Egyptian queen's looks were rather mediocre. What Cleopatra looked like is not known. But we can judge from some statues and from the bust from Herschel in Algiers. There is an opinion that this bust belongs to Cleopatra's daughter Selene too, as well as from the face depicted on the coins that the queen had quite a big nose and a narrow chin. But Cleopatra's feminine charms and intelligence helped. And Obelix, Mission Cleopatra, 2002, and other movie actresses who played the ruler. That is why many people think that Cleopatra was a femme fatale beauty who seduced men with her mere glance. But contrary to popular belief, the Egyptian queen's looks were rather mediocre. What Cleopatra looked like is not known. But we can judge from some statues and from the bust from Herschel in Algiers. There is an opinion that this bust belongs to Cleopatra's daughter Selene too, as well as from the face depicted on the coins that the queen had quite a big nose and a narrow chin. But Cleopatra's feminine charms and intelligence helped her make men her loyal admirers. She was not a noble person. Sometimes her temper was cruel. For example, the queen often tested poisons on prisoners and watched their deaths to test the effect of a dangerous potion on the body. Cleopatra was said to have been an amorous girl. In fact, indiscriminate relations between a man and a woman were not condemned in Rome and ancient Egypt. Kings and queens had several lovers and concubines. According to legend, madmen paid with their lives to share a bed with the Nile siren. After a night with Cleopatra, their heads became trophies and were displayed in the palace. The relationship between the Egyptian queen and the Roman general Julius Caesar is still the subject of beautiful legends. Indeed, it was love at first sight. For the sake of the 21-year-old Cleopatra, the emperor had forgotten his mistress Ervilia. After by 400 ships. On June 23, 47 BC, the lovers had a son, Ptolemy Caesar, Caesarion. It can be said that because of his alliance with Cleopatra, Caesar brought disaster upon himself. The Egyptian queen, her brother and son arrived in Rome, surrounded by a large retinue. The girl was disliked because of her arrogance, so they called her queen without adding her name. "I hate the queen," Cicero wrote in his manuscript. Those close to Caesar were convinced that the dictator wanted to become the new pharaoh and make Alexandria the capital of Rome. The Romans did not like such an arrangement, and for this and other reasons a conspiracy arose against Julius. On March 15, 44 BC, Caesar was assassinated. After Julius' death, a civil war broke out between the Romans, in which Cleopatra did not intervene. Mark Antony was proclaimed ruler of the eastern territory of Rome. Queen of aiding and abetting Caesar, but Cleopatra. The general was going to accuse the queen of aiding and abetting Caesar, but Cleopatra, aware of Mark's amorousness and vanity, acted with feminine cunning. She arrived on a gilded ship full of treasures in the costume of Aphrodite and enchanted the ancient Roman commander. Thus began an affair that lasted about 10 years. In 40 BC, the twins Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene were born to the lovers. In the fall of 36 BC, the third child, Ptolemy Philadelphus, was born. There are many fictions about Cleopatra's death, so it is almost impossible to reconstruct the event with the greatest accuracy. The generally accepted version is the story told by Plutarch. However, his version was further interpreted in his own way by writers, because Cleopatra's biography gave the background for romantic works. Thus, poems about the queen were written by Anna Akhmatova, Alexander Blok, Alexander Pushkin, and others,